Emotional intelligence, it's what influences us to take action on almost anything that we do. And this is what we're going to cover in this module, is the importance of EQ, also known as emotional intelligence. In the last module, I shared with you certain things about Mr. Jones that can really put me at a point of leverage as a salesman. It's what's going to help you create leverage when dealing with prospects like Mr. Jones, or any prospects for that matter. And there are certain things that Mr. Jones is going to say within his conversation that it's going to enable you to identify what emotional ties he has to the outcome. And having good awareness of how to read and how to spot specific emotions is going to help you greatly, not just only in your sales communication, but just communication in life in general. So you're going to notice certain things about people's motives, most in particularly our prospects, that will help you better communicate the solution and who to communicate the solution to. So going back to emotional intelligence, it's really just a matter of understanding why people act the way they act, or why people do the things that they do. And so it's the little subtleties that you can read or pick up, whether it's body language, whether it's maybe the choice of words that they use. For example, if they say we a lot, and I'm only speaking to one of the we party, then I'm going to make note that at the time of doing the sales presentation or asking specific questions or certain questions, that I might need to speak with the other party. However, if Mr. Jones just talked about I am going to do this, or I would like to see this, I may believe that Mr. Jones is the decision maker, because he's only saying I, as if like we need to do this, rather like a screener would say. A screener who could be possibly, let's say, Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones is saying, yeah, well, we are in the market to look at, or we are shopping around, and I know that now I'm speaking to the screener, right? And it's ultimately Mr. Jones who's going to make the bottom line decision. However, Mrs. Jones is the screener. That is emotional intelligence. It's understanding the placement of individuals, or the rank and the position of certain people, and understanding not only with prospects, but understanding in your atmosphere. So if you really pay attention to the emotions within your atmosphere, you can see the individuals who are at the top of the sales chart, right? And you'll see kind of just this way about them, right? More than likely, they don't act, walk, or talk, or have the same motive as someone who's at the bottom of that same sales chart. And this is what distinguishes them. These are the subtleties that make the difference between being a bottom producer or a top producer. And so when we take this concept and we apply it towards the people we engage with most, which are our prospects, we can use it to our advantage. We can use it to properly read prospects. And I'm going to give you 3 things that really drive all of us, including yourself and including myself, but most importantly, prospects. And the reason why I cover these 3 things is because they're very general emotions that really play a role in decision making. And those 3 emotions are love, fear, and self-preservation. In other words, survival or maintenance. This is basically maintaining their way of life, their comfort. And the reason why I go over those 3 things is because most of our decisions are influenced by those 3 emotions. And typically you can read these emotions over the phone as well as in person. But let me cover them with you. So the emotion of love. And the emotion of love can push someone to do something because they love certain things. Like they love being comfortable. And so they will be motivated to do refinance real quick or buy a house real quick because they love the image of being a homeowner. Or they love the ability to have extra cash every month so they can go buy things that they love. Or they love traveling, they love hobbies. And in order for them to protect what they love, and it could be children too, it could be children's education, children's private school tuition, or just children's daycare, but they're doing something for things that they love, right? And this is a driving force that motivates us all. And so we who are married, or we who are in relationships, we do certain things, we act a certain way to protect those that we love. As parents, there's certain things that I do in order to protect the kids that I love, right? My kids. And so this same thing applies to prospects. They're going to do certain things in order to protect what they love. So really think about that, understand that. Next to love, we have fear. The fear is probably one of the most powerful emotions that will make a prospect react. And so, in the pitching of a product, for example, most sales representatives will only pitch and stress on the reasons why to buy. Oh, you should buy us because we're the lowest rate, or you should buy us because we're the lowest fee, or you should buy us because we have the quickest turn time. But very rarely do you hear any sales representative sell on the fear of missing out, right? Like, well, this is what's going to happen if you do not get this program. Right, so now it's the polar opposite of selling benefit. You're actually selling based on fear, and there are certain prospects who need to be sold that way because they don't want to hear the benefit. Everyone else is telling them the benefit. Everyone else has quick turn times. Everyone else has a low rate and low fee. So how do you make noise? You make noise in a different way, and you start explaining the fear of the consequence if they don't buy, right? Well, you do have an easy, effective way of doing that. Is like saying it, instead of saying, well, you should buy us because we have the lowest rate and fee. An alternative, if you're selling on fear, and say, well, Mr. Jones, I understand, you do have an alternative to pay more than you need to, but I have an idea and here's a solution. Right, so now I've just sold him the opposite way of how everyone else is selling Mr. Jones. Oh, we got the lower rate, we got the lower payment, we got the lower fee. I'm selling him on the fear of missing out, and now that I have a solution, and I want him to pay attention to that solution. So besides fear, we have what I mentioned: self-preservation or survival, maintenance. This is what keeps us motivated to do the things we do on a daily basis. Like, we wake up at a certain time, we go to work for a certain amount of hours, and we collect a paycheck at the end of the week or the end of every other week. And that is something that we need to do in order to survive, in order to maintain. This is why people become very distraught if they lose their job, or people become very stressed out because they can't give up their job, they can't quit their job, because what's motivating them is their need to self-preserve, their ability to maintain, right? And so this is what drives them to continue doing jobs that they just don't like, to continue living a life that they just don't like, but they have to maintain it. And so the three emotions that I just covered applies to your prospect. And the trick is that you just have to identify what's pushing them and what's motivating them more. You're going to come across prospects who just love to bargain, who just love a bargain. They love responding back to flyers. They love the chance of getting over on the next company. So even if they're, say, for example, at 4%, right, but they see an advertisement at 3.99, they love the fact that they can be in the threes. And so that might be the motivating factor. With that individual, I'm not going to sell them on cash out refinancing because I know that interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. I'm not going to sell them on certain programs like an adjustable rate mortgage because their focus is on 3.99. So how I would sell them is I would do just that. I would put together 3.99 regardless of the discount points, regardless of the fees, regardless of any of that. At the end of the pitch, or when I create the pitch and I present the product, if I know throughout that sales conversation, after all the questions I've asked, that the only real thing that's pushing her is to get that 3.99, I'm going to deliver that 3.99. And in the module, when I cover the pitch, the actual presentation, I'm going to share with you how to do just that without losing the interest. But here, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. And a test run that I'd like you to do is actually study your environment, meaning your actual sales environment. So whether you're in a cubicle or you're in a room or you're in an open floor, I really want you to pay attention to those around you and try to read their emotion. Try to read their emotional tie. Why do they do what they do? Why does one person settle with being a below average producer or bottom line producer while another person is not happy until they're at the very top of the chart? Why do some people like to complain? Why, like you got that person in your sales floor, like no matter what, it's just always, I gotta do this again. You got that person. Typically that's the same person that comes in on every Monday morning, like, Monday. It's because they just love to complain, and it's okay. Some people are just like that. You can't change people just because you don't like hearing it. Just accept them for what they are. And the faster that you can do this, the faster that you can accept the things that you cannot change, the easier this job will be of generating new sales. When you try to change people, when you try to change things you cannot change, you become frustrated. More importantly, you start to push away from changing anything. But when you accept that there are things that you just cannot change, you learn how to adapt to those things. And this is what I'm going to share with you, just simply how to adapt to any specific trait, any specific emotion that's pushing your prospect. So if your prospect is coming in, for example, fear of the payment going up, or fear of not being able to retire, or fear of not having any net cash flow left because all the credit card debt and all the debt and obligations are eating up their cash flow, then I'm going to sell them based on fear. I'm not going to sell them based on the lowest interest rate. I'm going to sell them based on the maximum monthly savings in order to alleviate that fear of not having any more money, or alleviate the fear of failing and drowning in debt. That's how my conversation is going to last. Now, if I figure out that the main motivating factor, the main emotional tie is survival, right? And this is probably why that same person who always goes, after every task or after every piece of drama, like you hear it, like they're always kind of just looking at things half full, right? Like, the daunting task of work, oh no. And their response is somewhat always negative, like, it's Monday, I hate Mondays. It's just kind of just that negative tie. But what's really pushing them, or what's motivating them, is the need to survive. It's maintenance. And usually that actually just pushes the people who are at the bottom producing levels, right? Or the bottom producers on your sales floor. It's just maintaining. So they're the ones who literally looks at the clock and at 4:59 has their finger on the clock out button, like 5 o'clock, clocked out and gone for the day. They'll say bye to anyone. They just, kind of sneak out. Same individual who, if there's an opening for a weekend slot on your company to take more leads, it's that person who kind of sinks a little bit lower. They don't want to be seen. It's that individual who kind of just settles for less. Again, don't try to change people unless it's yourself. If that's you, change yourself. Change yourself right now, because that's something you can control. But if it's some dude who's on your aisle or some chick who's on your aisle, don't try to change them. You're just going to get frustrated because you can't. So accept it and adapt to it. How to adapt is you ask them, say, hey man, I know you're working this weekend. Do you mind swapping with me? Take over it, because more than likely they're probably going to not want to work on the weekend anyway. And this is your opportunity to come up on extra leads, which will create more sales. But the emotion of survival, the emotion of maintenance, when you engage with the prospect who's more concerned about maintenance, they're really telling you that they just want to keep their lifestyle the same, and something may have happened that's about to disrupt that way of living. And so, for example, one of your prospects might have a kid who's going into college, and the college tuition, the college expenses like groceries, furniture, rent of a new dorm room, all these other things create more expenses, right? And so our prospects are coming to us to find a solution of how can they bring on these other expenses and afford them without changing their lifestyle. And that's how you're going to sell them, is just letting them know, giving them peace of mind that they're going to be able to provide for their child or provide for themselves and not disrupt their lifestyle, even though their expenses are going up. So one of the common words that you'd use in your pitch is, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you solve this problem. I'm going to help you protect the income. I'm going to help you keep your lifestyle the same. I'm going to help you avoid disrupting your current lifestyle. I'm going to help you. These are the things that you'd want to say to them, because their whole motivation is how to survive. It's just how to maintain the lifestyle. And that's emotional intelligence. It's just kind of understanding how people operate, what they use as factors to make their decision, and then orchestrate your conversation or your communication with that individual based on what motivates them. And when you're able to really get good at spotting the emotional tie or what motivates that particular prospect, then you can start doing it on other things. You start doing it on your colleagues, you start doing it on your friends, your family, your children, your spouse, and you understand what motivates them, and more importantly yourself, what motivates you. You're able to identify how to leverage that motivation. So if your own personal motivation, like you love to win, right? Or you fear failure, or you need this job to survive, you need to make X amount of money every month to survive, you're going to understand what motivates you and capitalize just on that. And so you're saving yourself time, you're being more efficient by spending time on what positions you with the more chances to succeed. And that's exactly how, is you just have to read the emotions, you have to understand how we react to certain things. And so that's emotional intelligence. The next section that I'm going to cover with you is really about influence, and how we as individuals are influenced to make decisions. You know, besides emotions, there could be an actual physical person who plays a role of influence. So I'm going to share with you how our prospects are influenced by outside factors like their spouse, their colleague, their coworker, their parents, their neighbor, and I'm going to share with you how you can become the influencer, why you should be the one who's influencing the sale rather than Mrs. Jones' neighbor who used to be a loan officer 10 years ago. So I'm excited for you, and I hope that you found the content within this module very helpful. Please leave your comments below. Let me know what your favorite takeaway was. Let me know what you believe the module should have or could have had, and I'll see if I can send that to you directly. I'll see you on the next module.